and welcome. I'm Kathryn, and I have the pleasure to moderate this expert panel with TSystems, Deutsche Telekom, and AWS. Now, we know the importance of cloud, and we've just heard the imperatives of cloud to ensure that we're using cloud as an accelerator to our digitization. And yet, most of us are in the early stage of this journey. Only 20% of the data is in the cloud, and yet nearly 80% of us have some part of our infrastructure, our applications, or our workload in the cloud. And according to Gartner, all of us are spending at least what we spent in 2020 and even more in 2021. So, of course, the speed of transformation is accelerating. My next guest knows, or my first guest, knows all about that kind of acceleration. Let me welcome Peter Leukert to the panel, to this discussion. Peter, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Now, for sure, there's a lot of complexity, and you run one of the largest organizations as CIO of Deutsche Telekom. You have the complexity of security, regulatory, changes that are required, demanding customers, all of this. How does this play into a cloud journey? How do you start, and what are your priorities?
Well, I mean, the priority always is our customer, so Deutsche Telekom's customer, of course. Yeah, anything else would not make sense. So cloud, for me, is one element in an overall change journey. Yeah? And you mentioned speed, and I think that's the most important thing. We have been on a journey, and when we started, it took us on average 18 months to get something to the market, to the end customer. Now we're down to 3 months. Yeah? And on the one hand, I'm proud, and I say, well, incredible acceleration. On the other hand, I'm saying, well, there are others who do it in 3 weeks, yeah? So 3 months is still too slow. So therefore, in order to more quickly get things out to the customer and get customer feedback, there's 2 main elements from my point of view. There's agility, yeah, which has been a major innovation and revolution in how we work. Okay. And then there is modern engineering, of which cloud is an important part, yeah, which gives you a completely new tool set. Yeah? And we are trying to combine these 2 elements to really, in the end, deliver value more quickly and more sustainably to the customer.
That's really interesting that the customer is really at the heart of that acceleration. I mean, if you look back, and of course you're talking to a lot of your peers, what do you wish you knew before you started this journey?
Honestly, I think it's the other way around. If I had known all the stuff that we would hit along the journey, like just recently this Schrems 2 judgment, yeah, I might have been hesitant to get started. So I think sometimes it's a blessing that you don't know all the details of the trouble. Yeah, I do think the one thing that you always underestimate is the competence angle. Yeah, I think I cannot emphasize enough that you need to invest in building your people's skills. Yeah, because very often there's cultural elements, but at the core there's a competence thing that holds people back. Yeah, and of course partners like TSystems can help. Yeah, in an ideal way by not only helping deliver, but also helping build that competence. Yeah, with the internal people, and that I can't emphasize that enough. We have now trained thousands of people in my organization, and it's still not enough to make them confident.
That's really interesting. So the skills, the mindset of your organization, of course that benefits your team. Does it also benefit your customers?
Yeah, of course. As I said in the beginning, that's why we do this all. Yeah, it makes us much more able to deliver changes to the customers, to react to market requirements. And look, the customer, honestly, doesn't care, yeah, whether it's a network problem, an application problem, an app problem. Yeah, the customer is used to getting instantaneous service from people like Amazon and Netflix or whatever, and we have to stay competitive.
That's interesting. We talk about the last best experience they had with any company is their expectation for every company. Now, when you talk about mindset, do you think of a cloud first or even a public cloud first mindset?
Yes, but to me it's just one aspect, right? I think the real holy grail is what I would call cloud native, yeah? And the problem is that a lot of the people you have in a very successful enterprise like Deutsche Telekom, hey, we are very, very operationally successful. If you look at our numbers, yeah, we beat most of our competitors. You are very successful because you're doing great stuff with what you have at the moment, yeah? And your people are good at that. But this cloud native world is so different, yeah, that it's very hard for people to imagine. So you kind of need to help them make that leap and immersion, and it's almost like if you've never seen the sea, yeah, and you won't imagine a boat, right? So getting people there, and something we used, for example, was something we called greenhouses, yeah, where we literally transplanted teams and got them to experience this new way of working, yeah, and build that
Very
excitement, yeah. And as I said, this is all related then to building people's competencies and skills.
Skills, leadership, mindset, and then these greenhouses to help to develop that. Welcome, Adele.
Great to be here, and great to have Peter. Of course, Peter is one of the leading CIOs in running a very, very large enterprise, not only in Germany, but globally. And of course, he's one of our biggest customers. So it's a great event.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, Peter.
Well, you talk to CEOs and CIOs every day on their business priorities and also how cloud fits into that. What are you hearing from clients, and how does Peter's experience compare?
Well, look, Peter's experience is exactly what I hear from the other CIOs and CEOs. I mean, their ambitions is all about how do I make my company faster, how do I bring products to the market faster, how do I ensure resilience, how do I access innovation, right? So it's exactly what Peter was talking about, and everybody's now competing, of course, because whoever gets technology to support their business better is going to be leading, right, in terms of productivity, efficiency, and innovation. So it's very consistent with what Peter was talking about.
Good. And what do you see, Adele, as holding companies back? Because clearly they want to move in this area.
It's exactly what Peter talked about, skills. I mean, of course, a lot of folks struggle to figure out where do I start and how do I begin. So, not having a strategy, not having a depth of understanding, how do I complement my heterogeneous environments that I currently have today and start moving is a concern, but it is about skills. It's about having competent teams that can build your strategy and then really able to execute it, really actually run it. That's the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, that's a nice bridge, Peter, to, there's so many different kind of skills one could need to develop. I mean, in this multi-cloud environment, what role do hyperscalers and hyperscaler skills play in your strategy?
Well, I think the good news is that for most of the staff that you have in an IT organization, you need to build cloud-native engineering skills, yeah, that are not so much dependent on specifically whether you do AWS or you do Azure. Of course, there are specifics, yeah, but it's not like the difference between, I don't know, SAP or PeopleSoft in the old world, yeah. So you need to have this general cloud engineering skills, and you need engineering skills, yeah. So you need to do what we like to call shift left. So you need to empower the Scrum teams, yeah, that to actually do a lot of the work without relying on infrastructure or operations team. Okay. And that, to me, is the big, the big economic lever of cloud is not so much on the infrastructure side, because most of us have virtualized, already, but it's on the productivity side, because if you think about the lines of code that a developer writes in a normal, traditional world, more than half the time is spent on technical stuff, right. Making sure that technically things work. If you have a well-functioning cloud-native environment with CI/CD chain containers, whatever, they can spend 80% or more of the time on the actual business content. So that's a huge booster of the productivity of those teams. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And maybe that's a good moment for you to, again, give some advice to your CIO peers that are out there relative to developing their cloud strategy and perhaps, as importantly, their execution.
So, look, we have made many mistakes along the way, so I'm not the right person to give the best advice. But I would say you need to be clear. Yeah. So we, for example, have something which we call Route 60. Yeah, which is a clear ambition. Yeah, to take 60% of our code cloud native in the next couple of years. Yeah. Why not 100%? Because there are certain things where it will never make sense, or we have heavy security or regulatory things. And then, as I said, you need to invest in the skills. Yeah, you need to work with partners, but you can't rely on others, because that's a competence. So you need to find partners who are willing to not only do the work, but help you actually need them less going forward, which may sound a little bit contradictory. Right. Yeah, but that's what a true partnership is about for me. Yeah, and you need business alignment. If you do this as a sort of IT cleaning the garage kind of project, it's not going to work.
Right,
You actually need to have sponsors on the business side that see the benefits that cloud delivers in terms of productivity and agility.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I want to, Kathryn, just highlight something that Peter just said in the beginning, and that's to be brave, right? Because you will make mistakes, right? And its ability to be brave, go for it, of course with a plan and structure, realize when you make mistakes, fix them, learn, and continue, right? Which is not something a lot of the CIOs are ready to do, right?
No, it's good advice. Now, what role did T-Systems play in your journey, Peter?
Well, that was an interesting thing. So I would say, Adele, and correct me, I think when we started, it was a little bit a forced marriage, I would say, and both sides weren't totally happy, And one of the things was that we were holding each other back, a little bit in the legacy world, to be quite honest, And I think then, luckily, we managed to change that, and we managed to say it's not about T-Systems defending their current estate, but it's actually T-Systems helping us solve our problems, And so we jointly built up this migration factory, Of course, we also had help from AWS and others, but basically we built that jointly up. And as I was saying, and that had the thing that it accelerated the delivery, but also helped build skills on my end, And now, of course, you always have to realize that's why you need the strategy that Adele was talking about. Migration is only the first step. The immediate benefit of the migration is very limited if you have a pretty good application landscape, The benefit comes after that, Once you're in the cloud-native environment, the people realize the richness of the opportunities there, what you can do, the tooling, etc., and then you optimize the application and take it cloud-native, And then you get the real benefits.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Adele, do you want to add any more on the CMF framework or the collaboration with Peter?
Well, look, just to emphasize a few points that Peter said, it's very natural for a player like T-Systems that's been around forever and has many clouds, private clouds and on-premise infrastructures, to be very defensive about the current business. And Peter challenged us. I mean, he challenged us very hard because he had a very clear vision that in order for him to keep Deutsche Telekom competitive, he needed to move, right? And he had no room for us to debate what stays and what doesn't go. So it was a mindset shift for us as well, to start saying, look, we will work together, creating this framework that we needed, because we needed to accelerate the movement, but really do it in a way that's focused on what's the outcome. What is the customer of Deutsche Telekom and their benefit that we need to achieve through this migration?
That's really nice.
That's
a real partnership when you push each other in that way.
Well, like I said, it's not easy, right? Because the good is for us, we're within one family, right? So we can challenge ourselves very openly, right? Rather than, I could see how it will be even more difficult if you have a real third-party provider that you're dealing with, where you can't be as direct and open.
But it does bring up an interesting question around T-Systems legacy and cloud. We have been involved, T-Systems has been involved in cloud since 2008, I understand. So 14 years on, what do you see as the future of cloud?
Well, for us, we made it very clear, right? Our company is shifting into public cloud first, and I underline public cloud first. Of course, we believe in a multi-cloud environment, right? There is no one particular, and even a hybrid environment where Peter already said, there are some applications that he's going to have to keep on-premise, whether it's because economically it doesn't make any sense because he's planning to sunset them within the next 3 years or 5 years. It doesn't make sense to invest so much in them while ignoring the ones that would be the future for him, or because of data privacy or the data protection. We just haven't found a solution for it.
Right.
So you have to have a hybrid environment. And for us as a company, we had to learn until very recent that you can't keep protecting your legacy. You have to have a change of mindset. We're going to go cloud first, and we will do what the clients need. And that will mean disruption of our legacy.
Right.
And that's okay. We've accepted that as a business, and that changes the dynamics on how we drive the adoption in the marketplace.
It's a necessary part of the future. Peter, how do you see the future of cloud, or where does Route 60 take you?
See, if I knew the future of cloud, I wouldn't be working, I would be investing, yeah, and would get filthy rich. So obviously I don't know the future, yeah. So, but I think clearly, as I said, it will take us to a much more competitive stage in terms of speed, agility, yeah. Will also reduce cost, obviously, yeah. And then I think, have been talking about the traditional IT estate, yeah. Then of course for Deutsche Telekom there's a much bigger thing, which is also the network is being softwareized and cloudified, yeah, which is an even more difficult strategic discussion with cooptician versus the hyperscalers and so on and so forth. So let's not go down that route for now, but I think that's the even bigger game, yeah, that we as a company turn from a traditional infrastructure, hardware type of provider into a more software company, yeah, and this is a huge change, and that is all based on top of the cloud, yeah, and the cloud native architecture.
Very interesting. How often do you update your cloud strategy, Peter?
For me, it's basically you need to. I used to be a strategy consultant, so I could. I used to earn money with strategy, but I think it's more in these days, yeah, with the dynamic changes and whatever is happening, yeah. It's not so much a traditional strategy cycle. I think it's more like Adele said. I like to think about it more also in terms of this agile mindset. You need to spend a lot of time debating the right general direction, yeah, and then you need to do almost every quarter you need to sort of course adjust and see,
Nice.
Where did I stumble, where did I learn, what do I need to do next, yeah. And of course, you periodically also check whether the direction is still the right one, yeah. But I think that's more how I like to think about it.
Very nice. Yeah. I think we also have a clip from a client's perspective on the future of cloud. So Juan Jose Blaso Aguirre. Juan has a perspective from VW. Can we play that clip?
I think it's for me clear. All the people speak about cloud, but cloud is not the only technology that is in use. It's clearly is the technology that is growing faster. But I am sure that in the next future, cloud need to be connected with the mainframe technology and with the apps technologies that are today running in the today cloud. In this case, we are preparing our architects to running cloud together with this another technology.
Thank you, Juan. Yeah, so this notion
of
having architectural flexibility, I thought that was a really interesting point, and it reminded me, as I was listening to this, of when we first talked about mobile first. It didn't mean everything was mobile, but it was very much a mindset. So Juan is talking about a hybrid environment that gives him the architectural flexibility that is cloud first in the future. Another organization that saw the future quite early was AWS and Andy Jassy. They started in 2006, and joining us from AWS is Doug Yam. And Adele, would you like to ask Doug some questions?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Doug, for joining us. And as Peter knows, AWS has been an integral partner for us in DT as we started the journey. And Doug, who runs the partnership organization within AWS, has been actually at the very early stages involved in building the relationship with DT and TSystems. So Doug, welcome, really good to have you. I guess the first question I have is, did you guys ever envision the direction of cloud, the acceleration of growth, and the success that AWS has enjoyed over the last few years, if you rewind back, let's say 6, 7, or even 8 years ago?
First, thanks a lot for having me today, and thanks Adele for allowing me to participate in this important event. I'm really excited about this partnership with TSystems and the opportunities this relationship will unlock for our joint customers. To answer your question on AWS's growth, from the beginning, we've always had a strong conviction that the cloud was the biggest technological shift that we will see in our lifetime, and that the cloud would transform the world around us. And that has never been more evident than right now. But at the same time, I don't think anyone at AWS would have guessed that we would have ended Q4 2020 with a $51 billion run rate business that is growing at 28% year over year. As to what led to this success, I personally believe our unique culture at AWS is the key driver. There are a few things about our culture that is unique, and I'd like to share some of them with you. First, we're unusually customer obsessed. Some companies are competitor focused and spend their time trying to one-up their competition. Some companies believe they know what's best for their customers and build products that they believe customers will want. These companies can be successful, but their approach isn't our approach. Our main focus is listening to our customers and building services that they tell us that they need. The vast majority of all the new services that we launch are what our customers have asked us to build. Customers are not shy telling us about what they want, so we have a lot of new services and features on our future roadmap. Second, we like to pioneer and build. When we hire new people, we look for people who want to build and innovate on behalf of our customers. We know that builders don't want to be constrained, and having the right tool for the right job matters a lot. And that is why we continue to innovate faster than any other cloud provider. We have more than 200 services. Nobody has close to the same number of services that we do. But it's not just the number of services, it's the depth of features and capabilities within each of these services that matter. So not only did we start 5 or 6 years earlier than anyone else, we also innovate faster than anyone else. This is the key reason why we have millions of active customers using AWS. Lastly, we are unusually long-term oriented. We are trying to build relationships with our customers and our partners that will outlast everyone in this room today. We're willing to make decisions that other companies won't make if we believe it's the right thing for our customers. One great example of this is our AWS Trusted Advisor service, which is an online tool that provides you real-time guidance to help you provision resources following AWS best practices. Trusted Advisor helps optimize your AWS infrastructure, increase security and performance, reduce your overall costs, and monitor service limits. Trusted Advisor has helped reduce almost $500 million per year in costs for our customers. Or, we've made these recommendations which led to $500 million of less revenue for AWS. But we're okay with that because we know helping our customers be successful is going to also be successful for AWS in the long term. So we're willing to make the short-term sacrifice right now. Again, there are many reasons that have contributed to our success, but for me, AWS's unique culture matters a lot here.
That's amazing, Doug, right? I mean, it's the mindset, right? That we talked about that drives the success. Now, Doug, a little bit more detail. I mean, we've seen a massive increase in enterprises pushing into the cloud, especially in the last 12 months. Why is that the case, in your opinion?
I would say that when enterprises first evaluate the cloud, cost savings is an important factor. Everyone wants to save costs, right? However, we believe the most important reason for using the cloud is the speed and agility enterprises are able to gain from moving to the cloud. And I would say that this benefit has become even more important because of the pandemic. The pandemic has been a big inertia breaker for companies across all industries. All trends across industries prior to the pandemic are accelerating, and many of these trends are cloud-enabled. Trends such as remote work, remote learning, telemedicine, smart cities and factories, process automation, AI-enabled customer experience, etc. These trends will benefit from the advantages of cloud computing. Companies will be able to adopt these new trends much faster and do it much more cost effectively using the cloud. I do want to emphasize one industry trend, the importance of the cloud technology for industrial customers. I know that Industry 4.1 is a very important topic for all of you. It's also very important for AWS, and that is why we announced AWS for Industrial, a set of new services and solutions for common industrial workloads such as supply chain management, quality management, product and asset optimization, smart products and machines. For example, we now have services like Amazon Monitron, which is an end-to-end system that uses machine learning to detect abnormal behavior in industrial machinery, enabling you to implement predictive maintenance and reduce unplanned downtime. These new building blocks that we announced at reInvent, and there are quite a few more that I encourage all of you to check out. These new building blocks will enable partners like TSystems to combine your deep industry experience and expertise with AWS for industrial services to quickly develop new solutions like Smart Factory for your customers. All this innovation is opening up opportunities for companies of all sizes to move to the cloud. By the way, one key issue for companies who want to move fast and adopt the cloud is that they don't have enough cloud specialists in-house. And that is why we're seeing more and more companies turning to AWS partners like TSystems to help them speed up their transformation to the cloud while leveraging the continuous innovation from AWS. We believe there's a huge opportunity here, and we would love to work with TSystems to go capture that opportunity.
Very good, Doug. Well, I mean, it touched a lot of points we talked about, right? Skills but you know, the point you made earlier in your presentation, innovation drives customers and enterprises to the cloud. That is a given, right? That's where people are worried about being left behind and not having the latest technology, the latest access to developers, the latest access to tools, etc. But Doug, there's still hesitancy, right? We still have challenges. So in your opinion, or AWS's opinion, what are the biggest challenges enterprises face in moving to the cloud? We heard Peter's views. And what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say the first advice that I would give is for everyone, all enterprises, and even all of you today. If you haven't seen Andy Jass's keynote, I highly recommend watching it online. He talks about 8 keys to reinvention for enterprises. And he shared that these keys to reinvention aren't technical. They're about people, culture, and most importantly, senior leadership. And I could not agree with him more. I think we all agree that change is not easy. And so, enterprises have a hard time making these changes. And, for them to make a decision to transform their companies, it's going to have a huge impact on the entire organization. So the senior leaders have to step up and make sure that they are setting the right agenda for the company and set aggressive goals for the entire organization for them to move faster than they would do organically. And I believe the role that the senior leaders play in the enterprise transformation is so important, and you can't underestimate the importance of having strong leaders. And so, one of the things that we do at AWS is that we spend a lot of time making sure that we work closely with the senior leaders to ensure that they have the confidence in our platform, that they have confidence in our partners like TSystems to help them. And we've done that really well over the past few years, and you're seeing more and more enterprises making that transformation to the cloud. One thing that I think sometimes holds back enterprise customers from moving is the fact that they try to do too many things all at once. And I think what happens then is that a lot of companies get into the trap of what we call analysis paralysis, right? They are paralyzed from moving fast because they're trying to figure out how to move everything all at once. And our recommendation, our suggestion to our customers is that you want to make the transformation in stages. And so we conduct a full assessment of all the applications that they have in their portfolio, and then determine which ones should move first, which ones should move midterm, and which ones you should sort of leave for the last, because these have a lot of dependencies and there's a lot of legacy code, and it could be things like mainframe applications, and those are harder to move. And so what we recommend to our customers is that start with the easier things, which will help your team gain the experience of migrating and modernizing on the cloud, and take those learnings and apply them to the later stages of the adoption. And so when you are ready to move the mainframe applications over to the cloud, then you now have, or your team now has, enough experience and knowledge of making that migration, so it becomes much easier and the risk becomes lower. So, taking this phase approach is something that I highly recommend to all of the enterprise customers.
Very good, Doug. Thank you for that. And let me just give a little bit more insight on the partnership that we built, right, between the two companies. And we have to be honest, it started actually with Peter, right? Peter was the catalyst for us really focusing on how to build a partnership. When Peter built his strategy around Deutsche Telekom's direction into the cloud, we worked together with AWS to build that strategy and start executing. So that kind of was the root of it. But within that partnership, we've built a managed services capability that Doug was referring to, a capability that the customers can take advantage of in order to design their strategy, start working on the execution, and not to do the work on behalf of the client, but actually enable them to go to the journey and start building the expertise that they need. The second thing that we're very proud of that we built together, again, starting with Deutsche Telekom, is the cloud migration framework. And this has taken into account all of the experiences that we have across thousands of deployment of critical infrastructures and critical applications and bring them into the cloud, which wasn't easy. Because you got to become cloud native, so you got to think differently from what you've done before, and that's where AWS really helped us in building that framework that we now make available for our customers with or without TSystems that they can use going forward. And another area where we invested heavily, and Peter talked about it a little bit, is we've created a joint training program that AWS supported us, and we've trained over 3,000 architects and experts in our company. 3,000. And our goal is to go much further than that. So we have a few more thousand that we're working. And we're not talking about the high-level certification, which, by the way, we ask all of our communities, including our sellers, to get certified. I'm talking about very deep level of architectural deployment and management of this infrastructure that we have certified. So it's been a real important journey for us as a partner to AWS, as a provider to Deutsche Telekom to build this capability. So it's been really interesting building this.
Good. I think we have a question for Doug on that, or we get.
I think you're asking a question to Doug.
Okay. Well, let me ask Peter then a question on the collaboration with AWS. I mean, how do you see the potential to collaborate on 5G for hybrid cloud and edge solutions?
Well, I think that's a pretty broad question for us as Deutsche Telekom, right? And maybe I'm not the best placed person to answer that, because this is a little bit a strategic question, yeah. What is the cooptician model, yeah, in the network, yeah? And one thing, again, cloud is clear, yeah, that for 5G you will have a fully cloudified core, et cetera, that you even try to architect the access, yeah, the overrun stuff more in a layered way, yeah. But then, which cloud do you run your core network in? That is a touchy question, yeah, where also you have opinions of the government and some of the big customers and whatever. So I would say, but one thing is also clear around that one, that again, I think we should take the end customer's perspective, yeah. The end customer doesn't care whether there happens to be an edge device from AWS, a line from Deutsche Telekom, or something else. The end customer only wants that the whole thing works end to end. Yeah, exactly. And so this ability to work together, yeah, to be competitors, but also work together as partners, I think that's something that we all need in the future.
Oh, that's very important.
Yeah. And Kathryn, let me just ask a question on this, right? Because that is a really important area. But let me go back to Doug for just one more question, right? Sure. Given the partnership that we've established and everything that we built together, Doug, what is your opinion? How can we help our clients jointly now that we have built this partnership into the future?
And we know that TSystems has already done a lot of work on developing cloud migration framework, which covers things like strategy consulting and assessment, highly automated migration process, and managed services, including application modernization. And we want to leverage the existing framework and combine that with AWS's approach to migration and modernization to make sure that we offer the best solution and approach for our joint customers. And obviously one thing that's really important here is having the right people to execute within that framework, right? And I know that TSystems already has close to 2,000 cloud architects and an additional 1,000 AWS experts. And together, hopefully over the next few years, we'll be able to increase the number of AWS experts by 2x, 3x, or even 10x. And I think we got to think bigger about how we train more people, because helping our teams reskill in the time that we're in right now, where cloud is becoming so important, it is really important that we help our teams just become cloud experts, and we will work with TSystems to invest in TSystems people for them to be successful in the future. And lastly, I think there's a big opportunity to leverage Deutsche Telekom's 5G network to address our joint customer specific requirements around low latency and data residency needs by offering hybrid cloud and edge computing solutions together. So there are a lot of things that we can be doing, and I know that we're all going to be really busy trying to execute on these opportunities that we have identified as the future of our partnership.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, that's, Peter, what we were just talking about. And maybe we should have talked about this earlier, but if I can shift the discussion a bit to security and get perspectives from both of us on the security around both the data and the system. And how does security play into your cloud strategy? Peter, you want to start?
Well, I mean, it's at the center and the heart of everything we do, right? I mean, as a brand, we are a trusted brand, and we would never ever risk that. Yeah. So therefore, in anything we architect, design, be it on-prem, be it private cloud, be it public cloud, we always start with security first. Yeah. In fact, coming back to something we discussed earlier, one of the beauties of modern engineering is also that you can actually design security in much earlier. Yeah? Rather than somebody checking for security at the end of the process, you actually have DevSecOps experts in every Scrum team, in every Agile release train, designing it in from the beginning. Yeah? And of course, the cloud providers like AWS and others, they invest incredible amounts of money in cybersecurity. So the technical standards are very high. There's one issue which is less security, it's more data privacy, which is tough because there's just a different philosophy, a different legal environment in the US and in Europe. And to recombine that and find a solution that works for everyone is not trivial. But I'm also very confident that solutions will be found on that one. So far, for every problem, we have found a solution.
Yeah, that's very good. Adele, do you want to add from a TSystems
Yeah, and I'll do it in reverse, because I'll pick up on data privacy as a point that Peter talked about. So first of all, as Peter already said, we are a brand that's well recognized for security and data privacy. We take that to heart. It's something we don't violate. We don't play on the fringes, it is core. And of course, Schrems 2 is a challenge, the new legislation that's going through the EU Parliament at this point. Now, of course, we are working very closely with our EU representatives, with the legislators, with the policymakers, to make sure that what we come up with is workable for our global enterprises, right? Deutsche Telekom is not just present in Germany, it's present globally, right? So we have to respect data privacy, but we also need to make sure that policies are in a way that enables us to operate and not be left behind, locked behind walls. So that is critical for us to be actively involved in defining what that is, but also making sure that we're compliant. Whatever the legal framework is, we are compliant in that legal framework. So that's a big deal for us. It's our DNA. And on security, Peter already said, we start with security. It's DevSecOps DevSecOps, right? It's embedded into how we do it. And we have our own cyber defense centers that we use internally to secure DT, right? So we have an internal security team that is part of a security organization, we call it TSecurity, that's available to our customers. So everything that we know about and everything we do and all the tools that we have securing DT, we actually make it available to our broader customers. And although the environments in the public clouds are very robust, they are very secure, there's a lot of money spent on it, you have to complement it with your own security governance, with your security monitoring, with your security setup right from the beginning, and be able to recover if things do happen. Typically, security incidents are not caused by an architecture issue or a hardware failure. That happens.
Right.
But that's not the majority of the issues. It's human errors that create majority of the security incidents. And therefore, you do need a security framework that when you're operating in these environments is robust and takes that into account.
And it's a really nice value proposition for clients that they can take advantage of all the skills and capability to help scale their own security concerns within their organization.
Adele, just quick comment, because one thing you said might be misunderstood, and we don't want to create any fake news, right? Schrems 2 is a judgment by the European Court, yeah, and at the moment the Data Protection Agency are actually dealing with how to operationalize that.
Correct, yes.
One of the solutions to that could be what you said, that we have a change in actual regulation by either on the US side or the European side, or both, yeah. But as far as I know, there is no law yet in the EU Parliament. You were a little bit ahead of the, of the lawmakers on that one.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. Good.
Maybe that's a nice bridge to some questions about leadership. Do you want to ask Doug another question on that?
Yeah, I mean, Doug, you already talked about your focus as a company, right, on not just the technology, but actually the people, the managers, the leaders, and a lot of focus you put into helping them think about public cloud first. Give us a little bit more insight on the importance of leadership in this whole cloud journey.
You know, a lot of people have asked me about the recent announcement of Andy Jassy becoming the new CEO of Amazon. And my short response to everyone has been that, you know, I could not think of a better and more deserving person than Andy Jassy. You know, I've had the honor and pleasure of working very closely with him for a couple of years as his chief of staff, and I learned a great deal from him. But one thing that I learned that has been more important than anything else is the fact that, you know, he reinforced in me the belief that if you work hard, if you stay humble, and if you help others, good things will happen in life. And I feel like he's a great role model of someone who displays those traits.
So we talked about these.
It's a good recommendation for leaders, right? To how to think about how you drive yourself to the cloud and beyond.
Exactly. And so Doug spoke earlier of these 8 characteristics of reinvention that Andy talked about. And I think everyone has mentioned the importance of senior leadership's support and mindset. But again, what advice would you have to our viewers in terms of soliciting that senior leadership support and engaging the full organization in this shift of mindset? Maybe Peter, if you want to start.
I think this is a really important point, and Doug mentioned it. It's a different form of leadership culturally than what you historically find in most large corporates. Yeah, it's no longer the heroic leadership, the one on the top knows it all, but it's actually more a servant and enabling form of leadership. Yeah, that actually enables the engineering teams to do the right things. Yeah? And it's more you as a leader, you give the vision and the direction, and then you actually get out of the way, yeah, and let the teams work. And if they hit a problem, you help them resolve it, yeah. But I think AWS has been born with this culture more or less, yeah. But it's something that in many large corporations we actually need to work very hard to convince ourselves and our leaders that what made them maybe successful in the past needs to change in order to get into the future.
Oh, that's an important shift. Adele, any points from your perspective on?
I very much support that, right? I mean, a lot of the obstacles that enterprises face in transformation is cultural in nature, right?
Yeah.
It's where they came from, how they learned to be leaders, how the organization is structured, how decisions are made. And inside TSystems, that was something we identified 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And part of our transformation is to actually change the way we work, change our culture. This hierarchical thinking and command and control, that doesn't work in this agile world, right? And especially in a cloud native world. So that is something we focus on quite a bit. Not in T-Systems for sure, but also on a Deutsche Telekom level, as Peter already alluded to.
And together with T-Systems clients as well.
Absolutely.
I wonder if we got any questions from the chat. And while we're waiting for those, what happens when an organization doesn't have that support? What do they need to do to try to get senior leaders involved in their cloud strategy?
Well, you need, I mean, if you start with it, you need, first of all, you need some change agents in the organization, right? And Peter was a change agent for us in DT when he joined us, right? Somebody who knew very quickly that the importance of mindset, the importance of working differently, and you need a few of those, right, in order to start the journey. If you don't have them, it's very difficult to get going. But the important then is, as Peter said earlier, is for the leaders in the organization to not feel threatened about their authority, about their position, but allow these change agents and the people underneath that to actually innovate and drive it. And we have a very important hashtag within the company, within DT, which is hashtag people make it happen, that we want to live by, right? That is, you enable your people to be successful.
So Peter, you're a change agent through this journey as well. Any advice to those CIOs that haven't yet taken that role on?
Well, I can't imagine that somebody is a CIO who hasn't taken that role on, honestly. I think, you know, two pieces of advice. So number one, if anyone knows chemistry, very often the change agent, the catalyst, gets used up in the reaction. Yeah, so be a little bit, you know, prepared that it's not going to be pleasant all the time. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I think what Doug said very importantly, you need to be a role model. Yeah, so if you cannot have a failure culture if you don't talk about your own mistakes. Yeah, you cannot expect people to delegate decision-making authority to the teams if you try to take all the decisions yourselves, even if you don't have the competence. And I think that is the hardest thing, yeah, because most of us build our careers on something that is no longer exactly the recipe for the future going forward.
Oh, that's a very nice point. Peter, we have a question for you from the chat on how do you control your cloud investments? This client says, in my company, we're always struggling with cost transparency.
Well, actually, that's a good point. Let me answer on two levels. So on the one hand, there's kind of a portfolio level where you kind of look at overall what do I spend money on, yeah, and overall, of course, while I might accept some phases of investment where for a short period of time certain things go up, overall the trend needs to be in the right direction. Yeah, and then there is a science to managing cost in the cloud. Yeah, because if you take the on-prem practices, yeah, and you don't teach your teams to spin down environments, etc., to use the resiliency, the flexibility, costs will go through the roof. Yeah, so there is and therefore the question is a really good one, and it's not enough to have a financial controller who looks at that. Yeah, you have to, again, this is shift left like with security. You have to enable the teams, at least the systems teams, yeah, to understand that. As Doug was talking about, what are the mechanisms to optimize cost in the cloud? And it's really a very close interlinkage of technical and traditional financial and procurement ways of looking at the world. Yeah.
That's very interesting. In your greenhouses, did they have cost visibility at that level?
Of course.
Very nice.
Well, look, let me just add a little bit,
Yeah.
because this is a really important topic, right? And I think it's a myth that people say, well, you know, you get on-top investment and suddenly you can go to the cloud, right? I mean, Peter has an envelope, right, of where he's going to be spending the money.
Yeah.
And the tricky part is to figure out, okay, how do I shift? Right? How do I shift my spend from one area to the other area? And that's a lot of hard work, right? It's not easy to just say, well, you know, I'm going to move a few million from here to there. You have to make conscious decisions, shutting down things that you're doing that don't have as much value as if you create new ones and be brave about it, that will drive value to the business. The other thing, part of our framework that TSystems has developed is enabling customers to actually have that visibility of the cloud spend. Because it is possible you lose control. You know, if you open it up to everybody and not know and track of where's money being spent and what's the ROI, you wake up a few months later or a few quarters later and you realize, oh my goodness, you know, it grew 300 times and I need to do something about it. But be very careful not to create extra layers that prevent you from taking advantage of cloud native. Right? Because sometimes people do that. They say, well, I'm going to create this controller function that now everything needs to go through it. It slows you down dramatically, right? So it's something we can help the clients think about how to implement.
Oh, that's very helpful. I'm wondering, Adele, this is a question that came in from chat that may be better for you, but as you think about all these different factors, there's a question about the trade-offs between working with a single cloud provider versus multiple. How does an organization think through that question?
Well, look, Doug touched on it as well, and the way Peter actually got on the journey is a really good example, right? And that is focus. When you start, you have to focus, right? I mean, otherwise, you will spread yourself too thin. We already said that the biggest obstacle for you or the challenge is resources and skills, and you have to be able to invest in these skills and build them. So I would start saying, start simple and focus on one cloud, right?
Okay.
As you start. But the reality is, you will see these cloud providers, they're competing fiercely between themselves, and they're investing incredibly, and some of them do things better than the others. And it could be a period of time that they do that, or it could be a sustainable period of time where they are better than their competitors. And as an enterprise, you have to take advantage of that, right? And I like how AWS focuses on the clients, and I always put myself in a client view to say, how do I make sure I have the best resources and I am competitive enough in order to be competing in my business? And our view is it will require multi-cloud approach over a period of time.
Right.
But don't distract yourself when you're starting by trying to do too many things.
And does the framework help to assess those choices and make the best steps in terms of how to phase the journey?
The first step of the framework, which is how do I build a strategy, helps clients think through that. It asks these exact questions to say, what's the application landscape? What is your priority? Have you thought about your, I don't want to call it end state because there's never an end state, right? Kind of like your future state that you want to get to.
Desired outcomes.
Right. And how do you do that? So it does help you focus on that and answer the question up front.
And we have a question on best practices. You might also want to take it from, Peter, you said, you know, for sure you're going to make mistakes along the way. So either way you want to answer the question, you know, mistakes to avoid or best practices that you've learned along the journey.
Indeed, I think, you know, don't take in the beginning the most easy way. Yeah, I mean we and Adele knows that we initially sort of focused too much on private cloud, because it was easier to internally get the approvals, for that. So we didn't push hard enough on public cloud from day one. Yeah, I would, in hindsight, I would always say it has to work for public cloud. Yeah. Then, as I said, you know, don't assume, you know, that it's only a will problem. It is massively a skill problem. Yeah. So we did not, even though I thought we did a lot, we did not do quickly enough on reskilling and educating and investing in our people. Yeah. And then, you know, indeed, you need to get people into this new world. I call it the greenhouses. But don't expect that to be then towering successes, because as we said before, the real benefit comes from optimizing the application, not from migrating the applications. Right. But you then will get people who are excited about it, and who will talk to other people and so on and so forth. And maybe coming back to the last point you two discussed, I think, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it. You need to be conscious that if you make use of all the superior services that AWS or Azure or others build, you will get a certain lock-in. Yeah, so you can't be naive and say, I will stay completely flexible and use those services that give me productivity. So you do need to be aware, yes, I need to be multi-cloud, but I can't change from one day to the next. I then have to put in another migration if I want to change.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Adele, maybe you'd like to summarize in terms of last word, some of what we've heard and how our clients might be able to partner with TSystems on this journey.
Yeah, look, so first of all, I mean, public cloud and cloud-first journey is a very exciting journey, but it's not an easy journey, right? It's, you know, as you heard from one of the leading CIOs and certainly in the DAX 30 companies, but also globally, it is a hard work, it is a journey that requires focus and strategic thinking, and then investments. Especially investments in people. Right. Skills for sure, but also mindset and how you work and how you collaborate, it's a big investment. But you need to start on a journey. You will be left behind. I mean, if you are a company that's still trying to figure out what do I do, please do it quick and start experimenting, start doing things at lower scale in order to be able to learn and start on that journey before even you decide what my future mode of operation is, but it needs to be done in controlled and deliberate ways. And then the last question, or the last summary I would do is, look for partners. TSystems is one of them, but there are many partners that are building these capabilities, that are complementing the organizations going forward. Especially if you are a mid-sized company or a smaller company, there you need partnerships quite a bit to get you on the journey. I mean, we're lucky in DT, we're a large company, we have skills, we have capabilities. Peter's been building the skills over a period of time, but smaller companies don't get that. So build the ecosystem around you, but don't abdicate control. That's what Peter was talking about. Do not assume that somebody else is going to do your strategy, somebody else is going to run it for you, somebody is going to get your skills. You have to have ownership of your migration and where you're going. And the partners can help you. They'll create the ecosystem around you to make you successful. That's how I would summarize it at the end.
No, I think it's a really nice way to summarize, as it does take an ecosystem to address the changes that are happening in the marketplace, in our clients' organizations, and importantly, with their customers as well. So being able to be part of this journey together, developing that strategy, starting, phasing, scaling, building the skills, and then continuing on the journey together across the ecosystem. I'd like to thank you, Adele, Peter, Doug, Jose as part of this session, and thank you for listening. And with that, I'd like to pass it back to Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.